order of business would be to ask if any of the commissioners would like to discuss any preliminary items for January 17th regular business meeting. All right, hearing none. First item, discussion items on the Mountain View area development. Kevin Ross with Airport Fast Park, I'm sorry. Kevin Ross present.
Well, it may be another representative.
Hi, Travis with Fast Park, Kevin's colleague.
Okay.
Would it be possible to move down on the agenda? We have some folks caught in traffic.
Folks caught in traffic. All right, I'll move you down.
We greatly appreciate it, Chair. Thank you.
All right, next is update by Malden and Jenkins Audit Legal Department.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is David Roberts with Malden and Jenkins, and I'm here this evening to give you a brief update on where we are with the travel and training audit. So first, going to walk you through at a high level our scope, the approach for the audit, how we segregated them into different segments in terms of the expenses. We'll talk about our progress to date as well as themes to date and next steps. So just to remind everybody, in September of 22, the county retained Malden and Jenkins to conduct an evaluation of the county's training and travel costs. And basically that was from July 1st of 2018 through July 31st of 22. The objective is to review the expenses incurred as well as the relevant policies and procedures that the county maintains. Specifically, we're reviewing provided financial information provided by the county. We also have been given read-only access to Munis, your financial system, so we're also validating information that we're receiving. We are categorizing the identified costs into different logical groupings and performing data analysis. We're understanding your governing requirements, so specifically policies and procedures related to training and travel costs. We're assessing compliance related to what has occurred and the expenses with your relevant policies and procedures. And we're comparing the supporting documentation, certainly with best practices, and we'll provide recommendations as applicable. Again, our scope is divided into two segments, Segment A and Segment B, which are included in our contract. Right now we are focusing on Segment A, and we will be done and complete with Segment A with a report to the detailed report to the county by mid-February. From there, we can jump right into Segment B. Segment B, the scope includes yourselves, the Board of Commissioners, 3 executive management positions, the CFO, COO, and Chief Staff Attorney, approximately 25 department heads, all payments to colleges, universities, and institutes, and transactions that fall under Section 2115, which allows for special emergency procurements less than $75,000. Segment B will include all other county employees. So from our approach, we certainly received a vast amount of data from the county, worked very closely with finance, and they certainly had been great to work with. We have basically created our own repository. So we're taking all the financial information that we received, we're going into Munis ourselves and pulling data, and we're creating an Excel repository for the travel dates in question. We have reviewed your travel policy, and we are also performing testing where we're looking at individual travel and training expenses, reviewing the dates and purposes of travel, the estimated and actual claim dates, expenses by category, direct payments, supporting documentation, etc. We've also identified samples that we'll be doing for hotel per diem testing. So county policy requires hotel stays to be in accordance with GSA, which is the General Services Administration, federal government policy. And so we're checking for alignment with that and compliance. And we'll also be doing additional testing related to, again, hotels looking at daily rates, the location, looking at mileage, things of that nature. So far, or this is the universe of claims for the dates, again, between July 1st in 2018 and July 31st of 22. There are 169 expense claims for the 25 department heads, 23 for the COO, 23 for the CFO, 18 for the board chair, 55 for all board members, and 4 for the chief staff attorney. A total of 292 expense claims within our universe, and we'll be sampling 115 hotel per diem samples. In terms of the travel testing, we are 100% complete of the claims tested, and we also do an additional quality assurance review on those, and we're just short of 100% there. We've completed 98% of our hotel per diem samples tested as well. On the training side of things, that's our current step, where we've completed roughly 27% of all the payments to education institutions. We have tested those. And we are just beginning the process of testing the payments that fall under Section 2115. In terms of common themes, so again, as I mentioned, I will provide detailed report in mid-February to the county, and certainly happy to answer any additional questions. From a common theme to date perspective, there certainly is inconsistency in terms of documentation maintained. So as an example, people may submit hotel reservations or confirmations, but not the actual receipts. So things can vary. People may or may not be attending or actually utilizing those lodging. So additional things that we're noticing to help beef up your controls and ensure compliance. There are additional things that one would hope to see, such as conference agendas if you attend. That helps you understand if food was provided or if the county should be reimbursing for food. Also provides proof of attendance. Sometimes there are missing receipts. We all lose travel receipts. I travel quite a bit. A best practice is to basically have a signed certified statement that yes, I did incur this expense. And then also documentation of return of funds for overpayments. So the county does allow prepayments. So before somebody goes on a travel expense, if they do not have the personal credit card or means to pay for it, the county is able to provide a prepayment based on terms and conditions. And what we're not seeing is, or consistently seeing, is basically documentation, kind of that true up at the end of the day. Related to approvals, there are some inconsistencies in terms of approvals obtaining things that may fall out of normal boundaries, specifically related to GSA compliance. So things related to per diem, to airline tickets, to hotel room types, those type of things. They all very well could be understandable, but would just like to see more consistent documentation. So that's a common theme that we are identified to date. But as I said, we will be finishing up segment A by mid-February, and you'll have a detailed report that really dives into all categories, and we'll certainly have recommendations therein. I appreciate the opportunity to support you and work with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, are there any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin.
First of all, I want to say thank you so very much for you all coming in to do this. But I do want to go back to a couple of things that you mentioned. And before we even get to that, so are you actually an auditor yourself, or what is your role particularly with Malden and Jenkins?
So I'm a partner with Malden and Jenkins.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me your name again.
David Roberts.
David Roberts.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm on the advisory side of the house, so we
Okay.
are in an audit, so I'm not a CPA.
Oh, okay.
But I focus primarily on procurement, forensic, kind of digging into the weeds and looking at compliance.
All right. If you don't mind me asking, how many years have you been in the procurement forensic side?
23 now.
Well, you look good, 23 years.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now I'm going to tell my age. When I first moved to Georgia in '96, I was an internal auditor. It's a very difficult job.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
the beauty of it, you're external,
Yes.
coming in to bring this information to us. So thank you so very much for providing that information as well as the scope. If you could let me know, if we go back, at what point did you, once we voted and everything, that you actually begin to engage with the county?
So we actually began with the county. Let's see if I go back to the first slide. And it was in the fall time period. So we were engaged in September. I believe we actually began field work. It was, I want to say October.
October.
Yes, ma'am. And part of the delay was just the fact that the county has a room of computers where auditors can access Munis. And obviously, it's actually, it is really safeguarded, and IT does a great job of hounding us and protecting your information. So we had to wait for the financial auditors to complete their work and leave that room for us to have access to the computers.
Okay, and then the other thing I want to make sure that you're aware of, because we're looking at the dates. Is Jason here? Or somebody from IT? No? Okay, so keep in mind that there was a specific time period in which we did bring on Munis. So I don't know if you were aware, but for a period of time that all that information was not coinciding. In particular, I never forget one of the most nightmares we've ever had, and I know others remember this, and I want to say I think Commissioner Davis was just coming in, and that was when we were still operating off of an older system, transferring to Munis, and we had employees right after the holidays not getting paychecks. Some getting $1, some getting $1,000 over. So I remember those tests at the time were not, what would I say, consistent.
Yes, ma'am.
And so therefore it shows me that there may be continued some gaps that you may want to go back and look at. Because if you're looking at 2018, we were not up and fully loaded at that time, I don't think, but just go back and look. I'm not
Yes,
an
ma'am.
IT person, but I do remember that being a huge issue, and I do remember, unfortunately, having to pull in our IT commissioner down here on the end here, and having him look at some things, because it just behooved me that we did a whole upload without proper verification and signing off of seeing that the tests were done, and our employees took a big hit. So if it tells me that that was done, then I need you to go back and make sure you look at the verification of the actual paperwork, not just what was uploaded to Munis.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please don't
Absolutely.
forget that. That's a
I-
very important
I will not
factor on
forget that.
record. The other thing is I heard you mention about the GSA compliances. Keep in mind that when we are on travel through ACCG or NACO, just if you all don't know that they actually provide us with a list. And so unfortunately, there have been times we tried to get in at a particular time, and unfortunately, we used to go through a certain department, and I see Angela is out here, so I'll be glad to work. I'm glad to work with you moving forward. But at times that we were not able to get hotel accommodations in a time frame that we requested it, which then puts you outside of the bounds of getting those better rates. So just bear that in mind.
Absolutely. And I travel myself, so
You
I have
understand.
empathy. Yes, ma'am.
So the other thing I want to mention is I would love to see if you all could really, really look back at the original audit that was done by Terminus,
Okay.
and look at our actual policies as far as education and what is actually considered as continued education versus college degrees. And that's really big, and that's different. Because remember, we all have to follow the same, how do I say, the standards may be different, but they're more stringent in government.
Yes.
And then I need you to go back to a code specifically that states that ad valorem taxes cannot be used for said education.
Okay.
So I want you all to make sure that you are versed on that. If you need any help with that, there are folks at ACCG that can provide you with that information.
Yes,
so that
ma'am.
nobody on this dais can say that I'm giving you something. I'm just telling you where to find that.
Absolutely.
So that is really the key to it. So, and then defining the difference between a college degree that is closely aligned and related to the job that is being done on the behalf of the
Understood.
citizens. And then finally, you mentioned something about the personal credit card. Now, I did just tell you I was an internal auditor, and I'm going to tell you, I want you to tell me something. What have you found about the policy as it stands at this moment on reserving hotels and so forth? What is the current county policy on that? Do you have that, or have you reviewed it?
We have reviewed it. I can't recite it right now, so I apologize. But we certainly will be commenting on that in the final report.
Okay, because you made mention of for those who didn't have a personal credit card. Let me tell you why I
Sure.
asked that question.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, I'm so glad others are out here from the financial field. It has always given me hives to know that a organization requires an employee to use their personal credit card to reserve something, and then you switch it over. As you know, you and I in that world, that brings up all red flags.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, there are times that it does not get switched over as it should get switched over.
Yes.
And then the other point with that is to keep in mind that the current, when you look at it, it requires that we go through the finance division to even make those said reservations. So I want you to look at what others are doing in government, particularly in county government. I don't know what they do in city government, smaller municipalities, but I want to know what they're doing, because even though I've only been in office, this is now going into my 7th year, but one who worked in auditing years ago, that does not sit well with me.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
that is the current policy in place.
I understand your concerns. We'll definitely have commentary.
And we're putting a lot of weight on you.
Yes, ma'am. I got it.
Any other questions?
What is your time frame to get this done again? Because it's been
So-
dragging along a minute.
Yes, ma'am. Mid-February, we'll be complete with Segment A. We are ready to roll straight into Segment B, which is all employees.
I look forward to the report.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Thank you.
as will I. I definitely appreciate the scope of work that you are undertaking, and to just keep in mind that you are, the forensic audit is a reference to the policies and procedures. Of course, I don't know if what we hired you to do as the scope of work will include best practices, but it seems like to me that might be intertwined, but at the same time, let's definitely not lose sight of the scope that we hired you to conduct.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Do
Chairman.
you have
one
something,
more question.
Commissioner?
I think it was the third, I'm sorry, did I cut you?
No, go ahead.
On the, roughly the third or fourth slide,
Yes, sir.
it spoke about the claims
Yes, sir.
for the department heads and all of those. Were the commissioners not included in this audit portion for looking at the claims as well?
On the right-hand
Says it
side.
right.
That is for the
The
board
numbers right
members.
there.
Board
Yes, sir,
members.
for
Oh,
55. So-
Well, I'll put these on next.
Yes.
Any other, was that it for your questions?
That was all I was looking for.
The only thing I want to say, and I got to make sure you reiterate this, because I don't want folks to walk away with that, go back to your slide before. There was a couple slides where you talked about your tests. When you're looking at GSA, Mr. Chairman, that already includes best practices, because GSA is based upon best practices.
Okay.
So just for the folks to understand, we don't want to get caught up in, things that are just stated and not accurate, as it is within line of GSA.
And I did
Thank
say
you.
it's possibly intertwined, but at the same time, we don't want to give the appearance of directing the audit. So I just want to make sure you understood that.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Very clear.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.
All right, next up, we will have electric vehicle charging stations.
Hi, Commissioners. Oh, could you guys hear me?
Yes, state
Hi.
your name for us.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Avgin. I'm the Business Development Manager for the state of Georgia for EOS Links. So EOS Links is a smart city solution for EV charging. What we provide our partners is the ability to offer their citizens and their customers EV charging at no cost to the counties and the businesses that we work with. We really believe in building a network for the people to really change the infrastructure and the mindset of drivers on how to use their cars and how to fuel them up properly. Currently, people are using gas stations and stuff like that, but that's not a sustainable solution for EV charging. The infrastructure is just not in place, and I don't know how many businesses have 480 volt, but it's very few. Our proposal is to set up counties and businesses alike with level 2 240 volt chargers to help them get everyday lifestyle and people from outside the county to come to their county to charge their cars and build infrastructure for when EV charging comes more accessible to the communities, to have that in place so there'll be no pain points for the community themselves. So we started off with the Aurora back in 2022, was our first one that we touched ground in Atlanta. We have 45 now currently in the Atlanta DMA, and we have 72 in the permitting process as well. The Aurora is great, especially for the commerce size. We have a solar opportunity on there that helps store additional power just in case there's ever a power outage. We can still power our units and make sure that the community has an ability to charge their vehicles. We also have an Intel processor in there that helps us store charging data and makes us know how much they're being used and for how long they're being used. The great thing about all of our units is they're OEM, so we have the ability to change the units as they go. So in 2 years, similar to cell phones, EV chargers, all of them are going to be obsolete. We're able to go in there, change the chargers out, and make sure that you guys have the most up-to-date solutions possible for your guys' county. Doing our research and talking to our partners, we found that the Aurora is not the best solution for every single parking structure. So we took that data and took it to our team, and we created 4 other types of charging. One with a vertical digital solution, one without any advertising at all, and one that we could even put on walls for the really tight parking spots where there's no room to actually put a unit. Going into our digital advertising that we have there, I'm really excited about this with the counties that we've been working with. We have the ability to advertise local events as well as local businesses. We're able to put in any emergency alert that's going on in the neighborhood to alert the communities, as well as advertise local businesses to make sure that they're getting the proper recognition and driving businesses to them. What makes us unique from our competitors is we actually put a meter behind our unit and run it to the utility line and take on the electric bill ourselves. So we take care of all of the installation, maintenance, upgrades. We give you guys the unit for free. All we look for is parking spaces. Like I said, we're looking to put in areas where we could best serve the community as well as local businesses to help them drive businesses as well. So this goes a little more into detail. We also have additional security components to it where we can help do facial recognition security. If somebody's standing by your car that's not you, over 30 minutes, we could alert the proper authorities if the site gives us permission to do so. And with that too, we also work with the Missing and Exploited Children's Foundation, and we've actually helped save a few kids while we're doing it, and we're very proud of that. I know I talked a whole lot right there, so I'll slow down a little bit and see if you guys have any questions.
I have a question,
Of course.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Anderson, please.
So you said level 2 EV charging. So basically, for a car, how long would that take for that car to charge on a level 2? Because I know they have level 3 stations as well.
Of course.
And level
yeah.
1, and the level 1 stations take forever. Our family just went on a road trip that I know, and it took them almost 9 hours to get to Tennessee.
Absolutely.
And so I want to make sure if we have something that's going to fast charge these cars,
Right.
as they come through. And so how long would that level 2 station take?
So it depends on the car itself, but the average level 2 charger is around 50 to 70 miles per hour, or miles per hour. That's correct. We're on the faster side, so to give you a breakdown, it's anywhere. Level 2 is anywhere from 20 to 50 amps. We're at 45 amps for our chargers. They're universal chargers as well. And that really goes back into the changing the mindset of everybody is for the community itself. I know we're not there yet because there's less than 1% of people driving EV chargers right now, but down the road, level 3 everywhere it's just not attainable, just because of the infrastructure in place with the power grid. So what we're really trying to do is put it in as many places as possible for level 2. So you're charging at home, you go to work, you're able to charge while you're at work, you go to the grocery store, you're able to charge there, you go to the park, you're able to charge there. Literally everywhere you go, it's more of a service than it is a good. And that's really the best way to do it without putting immense pressure on the infrastructure.
Okay.
But I'm curious now, to Commissioner Anderson's point, if it's on empty, how long will it take?
Yeah, how long will it
So
take?
the general rule of thumb is around 2.5 hours.
Okay.
For a full charge.
And that's why, just like the timing and things of that nature, and
Absolutely.
when you have those level ones and different,
those-
take 8 hours.
Yeah, so for power input, so those are 120 volt, so you can plug those
Okay.
into the wall socket here. A 240 volt is similar to like a washing machine,
Okay.
so still accessible in almost every single business and area that you guys have. And then the level 3 is 480 volt, which is a special unit that you have to get an actual special transformer
Okay.
for, unless you're in an industrial area.
Okay.
So if I understand your presentation, you basically go out into community, partner with governmental entities as well as businesses,
Absolutely correct. Yeah,
and you install these charging stations,
Mhm.
and it's at a cost of what?
$0. So we don't charge you guys anything. For us, it's around $150,000 investment. We take on all the costs. That's why we put advertising screens on there. That helps us make up our money. It takes around 10 years for us to get a return on our investment, but we're really focused on building that network. Going back to the difference between a product and a service is we see this more like cell phone towers, right? So we need to put our chargers everywhere so we could build a network. So someone traveling I just came from Nashville this morning. So if I'm traveling from Nashville to Florida, I know that, hey, there are 15 chargers in Clayton County where I could charge there for 2 hours, go grab a bite to eat, go watch a movie, something like that, and then continue onward to my path. Especially with you guys being at the airport, I know a lot of rental cars now. The first option you go if you go on Hertz is the Tesla 3 charger or car right now. $225. It's great value, but no chargers. I think there's 4 chargers in the county of Clayton right now, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe you guys might be losing a lot of traction there because how many hotels do you guys have right next to the airport that could be driving business and people could be staying in Clayton County?
Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Hambrick?
Yes, just recently, I guess in the last 2-3 weeks, when the temperature was under 20 degrees, and there was a report given that these chargers do not work
Really?
at certain temperatures and all.
I did not hear, so I'm from Tennessee, but we got the same weather you guys did. I have not heard that report.
I don't know if it was here in Georgia. I just
Right,
heard
yeah.
that report that there was problems with
So
these
all-
chargers under a certain temperature.
So all of our chargers and our entire units are made OEM and they're weather graded, I believe IP65 rated. So it should be rust and severe rain resistant. I'll have to go back and check and I could send you that answer on the lowest temperature we could get to. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that one, unfortunately.
They do work, they just run slow, a lot slower.
Yeah, so that is something
Battery
that,
life
These
is
did not
less than-
work.
That's it.
okay, yeah, so those must have been lower level, like level 1 ones where when you get to a certain point, it takes 19 hours to charge. It's gonna take you 5 days to charge when it gets cold enough with level 1.
Yeah.
Commissioner Franklin?
Yes, I don't know if I missed it, but how, is there a fee for people to use these chargers?
Yes, there is. We go pretty based to what the current rate is for electricity. Right now, for an hour, it costs the consumer $1.45 in the state of Georgia.
Okay, and so you're receiving the funds from that fee, right?
Yeah, to pay the
Your
electric
company
bill.
is.
Mhm.
All right, and so, of course, we know that you said there aren't as many in Clayton County, and I get that, and it seems like you would probably go target the airport area first. So, but what will you all be giving to Clayton County? Because as a business owner or as a business, normally you would have to go find land, purchase the land, or lease the said land. So I
Absolutely.
love the fact that it's a partnership with counties, but what is the benefit to our county for you to be able to have this? Are you leasing land from us?
So that's a good way of putting it. What we do is we do the initial $150,000 installation. We also give you guys free advertising on the unit itself, as well as digital advertising, where we update all the mapping systems to provide each location on those mapping systems to drive customers that way. As for profit share, we make close to nothing on the actual rev share itself. It's mostly the advertising where we get our return on investment. And for us to get the return on investment that we initially put in, plus the upgrades, it takes us around 7 years right now. So that money is going essentially towards the initial cost and any additional.
I get the 7 years, but that's for you as a business person. What I'm trying to understand is what is the true benefit to Clayton County financially, because you're going to be receiving funds off of these advertisements, no matter what the time frame is. That's y'all's business model.
Of course.
So to say, well, we're going to let y'all advertise for free, that's not enticing enough. You know, the citizens of Clayton County are paying taxes on their land.
Right.
And so you're asking, or your company's asking, to come in and to utilize the land. Oh, well, we're going to pay, but that's your product. You're also turning around selling advertisements on your product, but the partnership comes in where, again, that you're going to give to the county any type of lease funding or something like that?
So that is also at a later date. So essentially, next steps would be where we'd put them. From there, we do a site assessment and look at it, and then we'd put together a final proposal, and that's when we would say, hey, this is how much. It's because it's really dependent on where we believe. If we put it in an area where there's going to be a ton of traffic, that's where we could talk more, but it's a case-by-case basis.
Oh, sounds good. I look forward to receiving additional information.
Of course.
But thank you for bringing this before us today.
Yeah.
Now
happy
I'm
to.
confused. So we have to make the deal first and then
No.
find out?
No. So you guys essentially give us proposal locations that you're like, hey, we think this might be beneficial areas for us to put it in. Our team would look at the sites, usually digitally at first, say, hey, this is where we would put this. This is what unit we believe we would put there. Once we do that review, we put together our full proposal for you guys to say yes or no to.
And you do make the same proposal for individual business owners.
Exactly, yeah. So it's similar to, going to the business side, we do that for each business location. For the county, we do it for all of your guys and do a total.
Are you all publicly traded or privately?
We are privately traded right now.
Can I ask a question, Chairman?
Commissioner Davis.
I understand that you upfront the cost for initial implementation. We know technology changes over time. Who would then incur the cost for maintenance and future upgrades when they start moving to different levels of chargers and different voltage and voltages? Is that the property owner, landowner, or would that be yours?
That would be us the entire
Okay.
the entire
That'd
length
be
of
for
the
life
agreement.
of the life of the contract?
Exactly.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate
course.
the presentation, and
course.
look forward to getting some additional information.
Oh, one more question. I'm sorry. Who else have you worked with?
So currently we have MSAs with ARIPBA and Choice Hotels, as well as we have a few that we're currently working with that we're not allowed to disclose quite yet.
I'm speaking of government specifically.
Oh, government-wise, so we're working with the Atoka County up in Tennessee, as well as we're in talks with Cobb County, Fulton County, and the city of Fairburn as well.
So you're in talks. You have not, we're going to be your first
Yeah, so
if you do this.
we currently have around 4 that we're in the later stage of conversations with, yes.
And how long have you been in business?
So we started in 2020. We put our first ones in the ground in 2021 of April. So around roughly 10 months.
10 months y'all been in business. I would love to see more. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions? Again, thank you, sir. We appreciate the presentation.
Happy to help.
Clayton County Public Schools internship.
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
I have one
Ambles.
more question
Yes,
for the board, not for the gentleman. Who put this on the agenda?
COO, who put this on the
Who
agenda?
asked for this to be on the agenda?
Ms. Rocker, Office of Economic Development had some conversations with the vendor.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Ambles?
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair Franklin, Commissioners, and good evening to our valued Clayton County citizens. We want to thank you for the opportunity to present. I think most of you know Ryan Shaw, Human Resources Officer. The topic of our presentation today is the implementation of a paid internship program in collaboration with Clayton County Public Schools. The internship program will be for high school seniors and juniors. Such a program is truly an investment in our future leaders. The target date of implementation, if the board approves it, will be January of 2023 this year. The overall objective of the internship program for our seniors and juniors is to provide on-the-job training and educational opportunity to the juniors and seniors, to also expose them to a public service work environment, to provide career opportunities for graduating students, and to provide our students with a chance to serve their community. We have participating departments. Recruitment will be ongoing, but the departments that are shown on the slide, these are the departments that have pledged to participate at this time. Before you, you have a booklet of the opportunities, the internship opportunities. I wanted the board to see this particular document because it will be public facing. It will be the one that the school system utilizes to recruit the students for the internship program. We established a MOU, Human Resources, in collaboration with the Clayton County Schools. The MOU has been reviewed by legal, and I will send the MOU to the board if you all would like to take a look at it. Some of the details of the MOU is 1 year with 2 automatic renewals. It outlines coordination of efforts. Within the MOU, you will see that Clayton County Board of Commissioner liaison is Ryan Shaw, as well as there is a liaison for Clayton County Public Schools, just to make sure that there is a coordination of effort. The financial impact is we are seen as a financial sponsor, $15 per hour for the intern, and that does align with our current compensation practice of $15 per hour. We would like to see 10 to 15 students participate per school year. Some key part of the structure is the CTAE work-based learning environment. Their coordinator will actually be the ones recruiting and doing the referrals, because at this time, well, I shouldn't call them children, the junior and seniors, their education is by far the most important aspect. So we are relying heavily on the public schools to make the referrals. When the intern is brought aboard, there will be different components within our internship program, such as midpoint evaluations, which is conducted by the supervisor. Copies of that evaluation will be sent to HR, Clayton County Public Schools, as well as the Board of Commissioners. The purpose of the midpoint eval is just to make sure that the internship program is going accordingly, and it'll give us continuous feedback as to what we may need to improve upon. There will also be exit interviews conducted. This will be engaged at the end of the internship program. We want to make sure that it was a great experience for the intern and gives us some ideas on what we can do to improve. Lastly, there will be an initial departmental orientation by the department so that the intern can get off to a great start. Classification of applicable laws. The interns will be classified as part-time employees. All applicable employment laws will apply. They have no civil service rights, and they will be similarly situated as are our seasonal employees. Financial impact and next steps. We will bring this forth as an agenda item for the January 17th meeting, and we will be requesting approval for funding. Pending board's approval, we'll get the implementation started, which will include recruitment, interviews, selection, and placement. The approximate annual budgetary implication will be 109 to 156. The interns will work, the most hours they will work would be $15, well, not $15, excuse me, 15 hours per week at $15 per hour. And Mr. Shaw, did I miss anything? Would you like to add something?
Good evening, Chairman, to the Board of Commissioners, citizens as well. Once more, I'm Ryan Shaw, your HR officer and citizen of Clayton County. Citizen of Clayton County. And looking at this, I just felt that this was a great opportunity, not just for the Clayton County Public School System, but for Clayton County Board of Commissioners as well. With so many things leading our youth in the wrong direction, anything that Clayton County can offer to get our children back on track or keep them on the right track, I think is worthwhile. I wish there was something like this when I was growing up. I think this will be beneficial to the Clayton County Public School Systems, our career-focused young people. I think this will be motivational to those who might not be as career-focused to get them on that path. And I also think this will be beneficial to our recruitment endeavors as well, giving our youth a pathway to employment here, hopefully here, to the Clayton County Board of Commissioners. That's it.
And I definitely agree with you, reference to creating pathways and opportunities for future employment by the very ones who we strive to take care of, and that's our children, our young people here in Clayton County. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin.
First of all, thank you for bringing this before the board. But I have a question for you because there are a lot of programs that currently exist that offer this type of exposure. Have you all looked into the ARC or spoken or have met with the school system before bringing it to the board to just add the amount?
This was a collaboration, a deep collaboration, Commissioner, with the Clayton County Public Schools.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have been collaborating for about how long, Ryan? Yeah, it's been months since we've been collaborating.
What division? Which division?
The CTAE division, as well as Miss Alicia, Albritton. Is it Albritton? Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, I did let them know that we were bringing this to the Board of Commissioners tonight and ask, if they wanted to attend. But it's Miss Alicia Albritton, and she is absolutely 100% wonderful, definitely committed to what she does. And me having a kindergartner in Clayton County Public School System, that was very refreshing to see her enthusiasm about Clayton County schools and just Clayton County in general. But yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. I'm glad to know. They're wonderful people over there. But my questions right now are specific to next. Have you all spoken with those with the ARC? Because it's my understanding that there's funding specifically. I know for years they've been trying to get into Clayton County. Since 2017, I've got phone call after phone call about opportunities that we've not taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. So have you all expanded your conversations to include the ARC with this opportunity?
We have not, Commissioner, but we will. Yeah, this is just a starting point for us, but we definitely will.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Hambrick, I'm sorry.
Okay. I noticed you all have the fire EMS. Is Chief still here? Okay.
Yes,
How
sir.
will this differ from the program we have now with the school system where we are actually training? Maybe you don't know, I don't know. Are we paying these potential firefighters and EMS
That's a great question.
people?
No, ma'am. So we do not pay our students. So our program is specifically a part of their K through 12 curriculum through school.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So because they've chosen a pathway in the 9th grade that is a part of their state now required education, since they're in that CTA program and that pathway. So no, ma'am, we're not paying them $15 an hour to go to high school. So it would be our involvement in this program would be for our positions that may not necessarily be sworn billets, i.e. your firefighter, your EMT, your paramedic. So if someone, if we had some clerical work or someone working within our professional standards division that does investigations or hiring, that's how we will utilize this program, but it will not merge and or mesh with what we're doing with the public schools as far as how we're training and hiring, because that is a part of their education. Okay. So their reward for that program is roughly $46,000 a year when they graduate.
Right. Okay. Well, do you think that will be something that may hinder students from signing on to your program as opposed to getting the $15?
Chief, can I interject?
Sure.
Just 1 second? Commissioner Hambrick, if the board.
Speak in the mic, please.
Thank you, Chair. If the board, well, first of all, I thank the fire department for being a part of this particular internship program. What you won't see in the catalog yet is PD. PD is also participating, and I'm waiting for their job description to add to the catalog. But on pages 16 and 17, you'll see the actual jobs, internship opportunities that fire has provided as part of this particular program. One of them is an emergency management training and exercise officer helping in that area. That's shown on page 16, and on page 17 is the other program that the fire has stated that they would be willing to be a part of this program, which is the Office of Professional Standards. And of course, the information about the jobs are shown there. So this is totally different from what Chief is doing with the Pathway program.
Okay, will these students be working during school hours, after hours, night? What kind of shifts?
Yes, ma'am. They will be working during the day. And we are the public schools will be the one dictating their schedule. I said earlier that at this point, in my mind, their education is the most important aspect of anything. That's why we're relying heavily under the program. There's a certain number of hours that the students can work so that it will mesh with their particular curriculum, and that is between 7.5 hours and 15 hours per week. But the school system will be working, their liaison will be working with Ryan to set the schedule. Their liaison would be identifying the students who qualify to participate.
So 7 hours, not 15 hours?
It can be between 7.5 hours and 15 hours, depending on where the student is within their curriculum and schoolwork and all of that stuff.
Okay, now, if they are working part-time and maybe after graduation decide to come and work with Clayton County, will that count as a part of their time served, I guess you call it, with the county at retirement or whatever benefits kind of thing?
That is such a great question, Commissioner, and no, ma'am, it will not. But if there's an employment opportunity, and we're hoping for some students who choose to go to work and maybe delay college, or some who just want to immediately start their career, we're hoping that there is a path for them to become a Clayton County employee, but it would start ground zero. It would their time, tenure, service date, and all of that will start when they become a Clayton County employee, not an intern.
You may want to look at that. The state has a good program like that.
Yes, ma'am.
And the kids do get a chance to add that time to whatever, say if they want to retire, they want to stay on, whatever longevity and all. So that may be something to consider.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Well, again, thank y'all for bringing this. It's something that's definitely needed and helpful. But let me also say that when it comes to the ARC, Rob LeBeau is the one Workforce Development Director. And they are in Clayton County. They work and provide money, grant money to Hearts to Nourish. And they have a very good program over there for the youth that they pay them while they train in technical areas. So you can check with them and check with Miss Debbie Anglin as well. She's very familiar with the program.
Yes, sir. We've made a note of it, so we take away points for HRs. We will look at the ARC, and we'll look at what Commissioner Hambrick said about possibly adding time if the intern become a Clayton County employee. That is, if the Board of Commissioners approve the program.
But, yes, and thank you for that, if I may. That's a great point, but we also have to remember the state is under a merit system where we're still civil service.
No,
They're not?
no.
What are they under?
They stopped merit system years ago.
So, but we're civil service. So remember, in our county, Madam Commissioner, there is an 18-month probationary period within civil service that will be activated once they're full-time. So just kind of think about that and then think about how you would see that time transferring over.
Well, when they were with the merit system, they still did that.
They
So,
still
and I
did.
can witness to that because I know kids that worked in the department I was in that worked as interns during the summer.
Gotcha.
And the few that decided to come on after, that time was transferred over, right. See, if they came on the same day somebody else, then their time was more because of
Got
that
it.
service they had done doing their internship, so.
Can I ask
I
you-
think it's a good thing.
Right. One more question, though. Do you remember it being that they forewent their probationary period or probationary period?
I don't
was
know,
still-
I just know that the merit system was in effect at that time.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Thank you.
Based off of that.
Thank you for sharing that.
As far as the summer months, will this program be implemented within the summer months, and will those hours be able to go up?
There's a possibility we'll remain in conversations with the public school. Once again, the idea is to do what is very best
Great.
for the students.
Thank you.
That's another great point. I appreciate the opportunity to present this, you all. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. All right, let's go to Mr. Reed with the presentation on Robert's Rules.
I know this is riveting information, but do you want to hear this now versus the city park? Can we do that first, or does it matter?
Yeah, let's
Is
do that.
everybody here from Fast Park? You were good now?
Yeah, we apologize again. Thank you very much.
Come on, what take you first? Come on.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the Clayton County Board of Commissioners. I'm Kevin Ross. I have been legal counsel for Airport Fast Park when they obtained the approvals for their parking facility on Charles W. Grant. And we have been pursuing and discussing for a while possible expansion of that facility, and that implicates obviously certain development-related issues relative to that area. So we asked to be on the work session agenda so that we could share some information and thoughts with you about those development issues. As a lawyer, I'm usually used to doing most of the talking, but this is probably most of you're going to hear from me tonight. Instead, you're going to hear from the client and also hear from a very well-respected, highly accomplished developer that will share some of his expert insight relative to the development issues. So let me turn it over to Rob Chavez of Airport Fast Park. We also have Salvador Chavez-Holzman and Susanna Chavez, who's worked here in the metropolitan Atlanta area for decades, even though she looks so young. So Rob, why don't you take the mic?
And while he's coming, let me say I request this to be on the agenda tonight.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate that, Commissioner. Mr. Chair, Board of Commissioners, thank you very much for having us and for the agenda shuffle. Greatly appreciate it. I'm Rob Chavez with Fast Park. Like Kevin said, I'm joined by my aunt and business partner, Susanna Chavez, and a true heavyweight in the Atlanta and national development scene, Egbert Perry. We're here today to discuss our near airport parking facility, which is located in the Mountain View area of Clayton County, a high priority redevelopment area, and also how it relates to the county-owned property just to the north, known as the Airline Museum property. We've been in discussions with folks from Clayton County for the last handful of years, including the Economic Development Officer, Erica Rocker, about our property, its proximity to the county property, the symbiotic relationship that the two could have, and really the best pathway forward to realize that redevelopment of the area that the county so keenly desires. I've spoken before this board in the past. We've been lucky enough to have Commissioner Hambrook and Commissioner Davis to our facility for a site tour. We're thankful to be back here to continue the conversation and to continue to share our vision for how we think we can realize that shared goal of redevelopment in the area. So I'd like to pass it over to Susana Chavez to introduce Mr. Perry. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us be here. So I'm introducing Egbert Perry. He's a developer. So Egbert, I'm going to read his bio because it's impressive and it says who he is. Egbert Perry is the chairman and chief executive officer of the Integral Group, a corporation that specializes in community development and commercial real estate development and investment. Following the financial crisis of 2008, Perry was asked to join the board of the $3.2 trillion financial firm Fannie Mae. After 5 years, he was appointed chair of the board, a position he held until 2018. During his tenure, Fannie Mae played a significant part in reviving the $11 trillion U.S. housing market, a vital component of the global economy. Integral, founded in 1993, has around $2 billion in completed or ongoing projects. Its portfolio consists of mixed-use, master-planned communities, as well as affordable workplace and Class A multi-housing. Integral has created more than 10,000 housing units and has over $1.5 billion in its development pipeline and controls more than 100 acres of urban property for development. So just a very accomplished developer. I know him through Central Atlanta Progress. He was chair of the board. I'm on the board. And I asked him if he would visit the site and then speak to the Clayton County Commissioners about how a developer would view this property. There is a map that might make it good.
Do the commissioners have the map?
Yeah, it's in your packet. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, so this is not the way I like to be received, as being late for a meeting. I thought I left 30 minutes and it took me 50 minutes, so I'm very sorry to be late, and so my apologies for
It's
that.
no problem, and
Okay.
although your bio was read and everything, for the record, could you just state your name
Yes,
first?
my name is Egbert Perry, and I am a developer. I've been in Atlanta metro area for about 42 years and have developed a lot of projects around the region. So Susanna said how I came to look at this site. She asked me to visit the site a couple of times a few months ago and give her my perspective. And then after we chatted about it, she said, I may ask you as well to come and speak to the commission and just give them your perspective and answer any questions they may have. So I'm really doing that in that regard. I am not officially involved in the project. So this is, okay? When you do a large mixed-use development, the biggest challenge is, there's a saying, is there a there? And if there's no there, then the challenge is to create the there. In other words, people go to places for experiences. And oftentimes, depending on what the environment is around the site, that determines whether you have something to draw from and create the energy. And if that doesn't exist, then it becomes a destination project that you have to create. So you have to find the thing that's going to give it life, and then that life will create the energy that others can develop other uses on, whether it's residential or retail or other uses. My communication to Ms. Chavez was, there is not a there yet. And the site that the county has behind is somewhat isolated. It's back, it's removed. To create a there, my sense was that the gateway or the entry needs to come right through their site. And so my suggestion to them was to look at ways to make the site porous, meaning be able to get through the site, and create a greater overall single development in the near term but with the recognition that as the there is being created, you'll have to go vertical with your transportation or parking solution to create more land for the other mix of uses. And so it's not a site that would have a long list of developers saying, oh yes, I want to do that, because it is sort of off the beaten path and not easy to access from the interstate. We talked about what kinds of things would work. Yes, a hotel could work, but even a typical hotel would be a challenge. It would have to be a hotel that offers some kind of experiential treatment, such that somebody says, oh, if you're going to Atlanta airport, when you come to the airport, you need to go and see this, or you need to stay here, or you need to go there. But just another hotel would not do it. And so you really need, from my perspective, and I realize you ask 10 people, you may get 10 different answers. From my perspective, you need something that is a holding strategy while you're cultivating or developing the site. So even if you did something with the client that's presenting, the suggestion would be, if you're looking to preserve your ability to maximize the potential of the site long term, then whatever is done must give recognition to the fact that there is a future, and you cannot close the door on the potential for developing the site down the road. So those are my very simplistic, hopefully useful insights.
Okay, and we definitely appreciate your insight. Are there any questions, or is there anybody else need to speak?
Will you go ahead and take some questions?
Okay. Any questions?
Well, not a question, but a comment. Because the thing we keep hearing, we've heard before, is that that property has to be used in the form of some type of transportation and all. And so that's one of the dilemmas that we've had with that.
When you say transportation, what type of transportation use?
Well, it's according to the agreement that was made years ago.
Okay.
When Clayton County ended up with the properties. And
Got it.
Mr.
Okay.
Chavez, I think, knows what I'm talking
Okay.
about.
Yeah, and basically it's a GDOT property.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. The way that property was transferred historically from GDOT to Clayton County, it came with certain use restrictions, one of which is that it is restricted to transportation services, and it did, of course, get the Airline Museum as a by right use as well. I know that the Airline Museum is no longer the planned development there. What we've said in the past is that we'd like to work with the county to work through those restrictions so that it can see a future that's not based on transportation. We view transportation as the there for now, and the thing that doesn't inhibit that future vertical development to really see the value of this site, and for this site to be the catalyst to cause the dominoes to fall in the Mountain View area. We think that this county site will only have one chance to go vertical, and because of the access limitations, because of the visibility limitations, without some connection to CW Grant Parkway, like Mr. Perry commented on, it could not be successful. I don't specifically know the history of how these parcels were broken up with the roadway in between there, but when you're out there and you look at this thing, the county parcel and our parcel, it feels like it's one, right? Because currently, in which this red line shows, if you're coming from the north, if you're coming from the major metropolitan area and you're coming south, in order to access this site, you have to actually exit, get on Charles W. Grant Parkway, head south on International Parkway through this flex office development, under CW Grant Parkway on a frontage road, around our site to the back to access the county site. Now, everyone is coming from the north. That's your customer, that's your driver. Many people are coming from the north. I shouldn't be so dismissive. So many people are coming from the north, and so that access route would make it very difficult, we believe, for the type of signature development that the county wants. So we think that by virtue of owning the property to the south, we're a strategic partner for the county to not only create that interim use to generate tax revenue, to generate temporary jobs and permanent jobs through the parking and transportation use, but ultimately to set this property up so that someone like Mr. Perry, I'm not saying Mr. Perry, but the developer with the grand idea could come along and realize that potential.
And even with that being said, you said you have been at this for a while. Have you had any conversation or discussions with GDOT?
Yeah, so our next move is going to be to discuss with GDOT. We would like to, of course, do that in partnership with the county because this is your all's property, of course. But we would be happy to work through that at shoulder to shoulder in good faith with you all and with your team to see what can be done.
I could be wrong, but I believe their perspective, and I seen an email from GDOT on it that stated for anything like that to happen, we would have to turn the property back over to GDOT prior to doing any other or going into any other negotiations with anybody else.
Yeah, I have seen that from Ms. Rocker as well. I think we need to get smarter on that and to understand if there's any nuance, if there's any mechanism to realize the interim development, which is a parking facility, without that transfer back.
Maybe if we were to really get into serious talks or conversation with different parties, including you, Mr. Perry, or somebody, very similar, whatever, and try and come up with something, because, we've been talking on this property for years. I mean, even before Fast Park. Mm-hmm. So if we could really do that, Chairman, if you think that's possible, Chuck, I don't know what we could do, but if we were to really seriously do our research and try and come up with something or some project.
Well, I think first step would be to see if GDOT's going to be open to repurposing that property.
Well, I think if we talk and come up with some 1, 2, 3 solutions or whatever and all, and then, yes, run it by them and just see if some, instead of talking with them and thinking they're going to come up with something, because I don't think they are.
Yes. Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, and that's a great point. The reality is, in looking at the site, and I did not know about the transportation restriction, it's good that I didn't, and I think Susanna did that intentionally. She said, just look at the site and give me your perspective. And I gave her the perspective, and it so happens that what I said is, your use of transportation, I'm talking about their use on their portion of the site, really should be back here, because the better site for purposes of a mixed use, creating a place, creating a destination, is on their current property. So the idea would be to get some transportation uses back there and create some freeing up of land on their property, which helps make it much more accessible from the main entry into the site, and you can then create more of a destination. So that was the perspective. So maybe if that restriction is there on transportation, in the near term, it may not be a problem, because the ideal use may call for transportation uses to be back on that site as you create the opportunity for development on the front. So that's just a thought. Okay.
That's great
Something we
input.
could continue to look into,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, very informative, and we will continue to work to see if there's a solution or how the commissioner wants to move forward with that property anyway.
Thank you very much. We
Yes.
appreciate all the
All right.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Reed.
Mr. Reed, you look like you're going to school with all those books.
Well, speaking of school, Mr. Ross was my election law professor in law school, so.
Uh-oh.
See, I know. Fortunately, I'm not speaking on election law, so.
You didn't get nervous, did you, sir?
That's why he said, let me go last.
No, just kidding. So it was.
That was funny.
I have the pleasure of summarizing this thick book in a few minutes, and so that's why it started. It was called Basic Understanding of Robert's Rules of Order, And so there's a couple of quick things that I'm going to move through very quickly is about what this is going to provide. It's an insight about the history of Robert's Rules of Order, address the roles and responsibilities of the board's officers, and apply the basic guidance on how Robert's Rules will conduct an effective meeting. And this is not just for your purposes, but also for the citizens to understand what you all do as far as parliamentary procedure. So parliamentary law is simply the rules and precedents covering deliberative assemblies, other organizations. It's the groundwork for helping meetings go efficiently. And if without some sort of rules in place, meetings could take a long time and have a lot of chaos. And the Robert's Rules of Order is actually started from Henry Robert, who was the initial author of those rules that came from parliamentary law from Thomas Jefferson. This was when Congress had their set of rules, how they were going to operate. They thought, well, let's try to do it for other entities, but it was too convoluted, too cumbersome for the average citizen to use. So Henry Martin was a member of the Army Corps of Engineers, and ironically, he was trying to oversee a church meeting, and it got so contentious that he couldn't get anything done, so he came up with a sense of rules of how to conduct meetings so that order can be done. There are many, many additions that have been in effect, obviously, since 1876. And again, the purpose of the rules is was taken from what Congress did and adapted it for the use of ordinary societies. And so basically there are 4 areas that parliamentary rules protect. The right of the majority to decide, the right of the minority to be heard, the right of the individual member, and the right of absentees. And I'll just quickly just kind of talk about each one of those. We always hear the story or the saying, might makes right, or the majority. The parliamentary rules does provide that. But the other thing it also provides is for minority members to be able to hear and say things that are on their minds and give them a voice as well. The individual members, each of you all collectively make up the voice of the board, but you all, each individually, have rights under Robert's Rules of Order, and also even those who are absent have rights as well. So quickly moving on to the roles of the BOC commissioners. Of course, you know there's 2 roles as the chair and the vice chair. And just the chair, of course, is coming from Section 2-2 of your code, which sets up forth the composition of this board, a chairman and 4 commissioners. And then Section 2-5 of the ordinance provides that every year you all elect a vice chair, and that vice chair assumes the duties of the chairman in the chairman's absence. You all adopted in February of last year that Robert's Rules of Order would be your parliamentary authority. Before that, there was kind of, you took some pieces of Robert's Rules, but now that is the actual authority for how meetings are conducted. And so moving quickly, chairman's demeanor. Chairman should be calm, objective, fair, and impartial. Again, these are all things that help protect both the voice of the majority, the voice of the minority. The presiding officer is responsible for the orderly conduct of the meeting. And looking at Section 2-5, that the presiding officer is responsible for presiding over the meeting, shall rely on the county attorney for guidance in meeting procedures, and then the chairman, as the presiding officer, has the right to obviously to vote on any matter that comes before. But the whole role of the chair is to make sure that the meeting is to run smoothly. and make sure that each of the concerns of each member is heard and the voices of each member are able to be respected. Again, just moving quickly through this. The chair, I had that picture because the chair is like the conductor. The role is to make sure that there's order in the meeting, and those would be to enforce the rules, operate in an expedient, impartial manner, conduct business in a calm and objective manner, focus on the group, and not allow irrelevant discussion. And so during meetings, again, this is for the public, there'll be times where there are motions that the chair will ask the county attorney or chief staff attorney for advice, and that's just to make sure that the meeting is running in a manner that is consistent with Robert's rules. Again, these are other issues. Just for the public's sake, chairman's responsibilities: arrive early, start meetings on time, facilitate handling of the items on the agenda, and be familiar with the Code of Ordinances, specifically sections 2-3, 2-35, 36, and 37, the BOC's standing rules, customs of the group, and parliamentary procedures. And finally, clarify motions and votes in those instances where there is not clarity. The vice chair's role serves in the absence of the chair, as I mentioned before, and handles any issues that he or she is assigned. The reason why I have this picture here is that, well, actually, I stole it from my pastor. He talked about how when geese, when they fly long distances, the head geese or duck, they don't say anything. It's the ones who are behind that are they're making all the quacking and doing all that. And by flying together, they can fly farther than they can by themselves. And eventually, when the lead one gets tired, it moves to the back, and another one takes the place, and that helps them continue moving forward as a group. So the vice chair is actually like the geese behind. They're the ones supporting the chair as they are going through these meetings. They are ready to step up into the role when the vice chair is not there, ready to handle the issue, and of course, keep things moving when the chair is not present. So moving on, during the meeting, of course, the parliamentary process is that the board would follow the agenda, and those members of the public who are here always hear that the agenda is adopted at the beginning of the meeting. And during that, there's adherence to parliamentary procedure. That is, when a member wants to address or have a comment, they must be recognized by the chair. It's one question at a time, one speaker at a time. The chair would also obviously recognize that there's a quorum present, because a majority must be present to conduct business. And then you have to vote on the items that before the assembly on the agenda. Very quickly, steps to making the motion. Of course, the member would raise their hand or vocalize a request to the chair. The chair would recognize that member by stating their name. The member says, I move to do X, Y, and Z. There's a second. Those who've watched meetings see this happen all the time, but just going through the steps. The chair would place that motion and place it before the assembly and saying it's moved and seconded that, and then ask for any questions or discussion. The members are recognized and they debate that motion, and there are subsidiary motions that can be introduced at that time, and I'll talk just very briefly about that in a few minutes. Once the discussion has been done, the chair puts the question to a vote. Motions to adopt. Those in favor raise your hand or vocalize. Votes raise your hand, and then announce the results of the vote, that the motion's been adopted or the motion's been lost, and then they move to the next order of business. So, quickly, there are two types of motions generally. There are main motions, which are motions that certain actions can be taken or an opinion be expressed by the group. And those are simply, I move that something, something, something happens. The secondary motions, which may be used while the main motion is on the floor. And so there's different types. There's subsidiary motions. Those are motions, just very briefly, are ones that modify the motion that is pending. And they have an order of preference, order of precedence. They're out of order, or there's some characteristics of that. The person has to have the floor in order to make the subsidiary motion. And some examples would be a motion to postpone something indefinitely, or a motion to amend, or refer an item to another meeting, or commit a main question, et cetera, et cetera. There are other subsidiary motions, like a privilege motion. These don't necessarily relate to business that's before the meeting, but they deal with matters of importance or overriding concern. These would be something like raising a question of privilege. If the meeting is going on and the member says, hey, a point of privilege, and they want to address maybe recognizing somebody who is in the audience, that would be considered a privilege motion. Motions to recess, motion to adjourn, those are privilege motions. Those not necessarily on the agenda, but these are things that can be done even, they're not relating to pending business, but they have something to do with matters of importance. And then finally, there are incidental motions, which relate to pending business or business otherwise at hand. And these would be point of order, appeal, suspending the rules, objection to consideration of a question, not going into details on all of those types, but those would be considered incidental motions. There are some indications when a meeting, oops, I think I went past too far. Oh, well, okay, I must have. So there are some indications when a meeting is out of order. When there's individual members making personal remarks, members bringing up the same motion or essentially one like it, where an example would be the motion is defeated, but then they turn around and sing that same motion again, or something same type of motion. Putting a debatable issue to a vote before the full debate is complete. Debates are not directed to motives, but to motives, to motions, but to motives, principles, and personalities, members yelling out in opposition, members not being recognized by the chair. And so I want to talk about a couple quickly of issues dealing when a meeting is out of order. And so these are dealing with offenses that are in the meeting. And we've heard a number of times where there's a point of order. So again, going back to what I said about Robert's Rules of Order, protecting the majority, the minority, individual commissioners, as well as those who are absent, everybody who is at a meeting has an obligation to obey the legitimate orders of the presiding officer. That also includes, under Robert's rules, non-members of the board, and that would be citizens. And so commissioners, each commissioner has a right to ensure enforcement of the rule if the chair acts improperly. Going back up to the non-members, while Robert's Rules of Order do not necessarily apply, where you can't make a citizen make a motion and they don't have direction over that, but this board does have authority to keep disruption of the meeting from taking place. Now, of course, that's balanced by constitutional rights. While Robert's rules may say somebody has to be removed, you all, as a governmental body, have a higher authority, which is the Constitution, and so before somebody would be ordered to leave a meeting, you'd have to take into the consideration those constitutional issues. So moving on, so each commissioner individually has a right to ensure enforcement of the rules if the chair acts improperly. And so when a commissioner raises a point of order, that the chair must determine whether the point is well taken. And so the chair should ask the commissioner to state the point of order or what rules or words are objectionable. And on completing whatever that statement is, the chair decides whether the point is well taken or not well taken, and then state the reasons for that decision, which are recorded in the minutes. So for example, there is a comment made that, or there was something that was said that was objectionable that was not related to an item on the agenda. And so if that was done, whether that's by a citizen or by a commissioner, then another commissioner could raise a point of order. And then the chair would say, well, okay, what is the issue that you are, under Robert's rules? What is the issue that you are referring to? Well, I'm raising a point of order that this board is considering items that are not on this agenda and is not raised properly before it. So then the chair would decide either, well, if it's a close call, he can ask the entire board to weigh in on it, or he can say, oh, great, okay, the point is well taken, member, please stop addressing this issue that's not on the agenda. If the chair makes a decision, him or herself, that decision is appealable unless it relates to issues of indecorum or transgressions of rules or speaking, and in that case, it's not debatable. So, and also if the chair asks for commentary among the board and is there some discussion about whether the point is well taken, if the board makes a decision as to whether that point of order is correct, that is not appealed because obviously you all are making the decision collectively. Another issue that is one that comes up is a calling the question to end debate on the subject. Again, remembering the purposes of the rules, to protect the minority and the individual commissioner, there's a 2/3 vote necessary whenever you're taking away rights of members or if you're changing something that's already been decided. So therefore, if there's an end to the debate, a motion to call the question must be seconded and voted by more than 2/3. So in other words, 4 of the 5 commissioners have to say that we are making a motion to end the debate. Again, going back to the protection of that individual commissioner to have a right to have a voice even if they are in the minority. So, true or false, board members have a right to debate a motion prior to being recognized by the chair? Obviously, no. Every board member as an individual has a right to discuss items, but the chair must recognize each member prior to discussion. And so I know I went through this super, super fast, but it's a lot of stuff in here. But I wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that we see more frequently than others. And so if there's any questions, I'm open to it.
I appreciate your presentation. Please make a copy of the presentation. Send it to each of us as well. I asked for this to be on. We adopted the Robert's Rules as our parliamentarian procedures. And I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page as we move forward into 2023, that we do things proper and in order according to the rules that we adopted. Are there any questions for Mr. Reed?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Hammond.
it's not a question, but I do have a request of our clerk. And I don't know if you have it, Courtney, but will you read that paragraph that you read before public comment? And let's listen to that. You know, I mean, I think it's like a habit kind of thing and nobody really listens to it. But if you would please read that, I would appreciate it. Oh, you don't? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would want us all to hear that
Great
and start
point.
abiding by that.
Yes. I'm so glad that you said that, Madam Vice Chair.
I'm not.
No, I'm glad that you asked for it to be read.
Oh, I'm not vice chair.
I'm sorry.
You're right.
Like, wait a minute, I gave that up. Oh, yeah. Wait a minute, we did do that. So let me say this. Thank you for your presentation. And I want to actually commend Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Hambrick on pushing for the parliamentarian procedures to be adopted. Again, this is one of those things to where I know I've only been in governance a few years, but it behooved me that we never fully adopted the parliamentarian procedures. So I'm glad to see that it is adopted, and I'm glad that you have defined the roles of chair, vice chair, which thank y'all for electing me. But I'm glad that you did that. And it is my pleasure to serve in that role. But one of the things that I do want to draw your attention to as well, because I know you ran through it rather quickly and your professor made you a little nervous. Because I did do a lot of research during the time periods. One thing people need to understand, lively debate is welcomed, because then that means that you have people representing you that are representing you for your best interest, particularly within the districts. You know, every commissioner should know what their people want to see. However, also, I'm glad that you brought it before the board, and I'm glad that Mr. Chair had you go over it, because this is one of the first things that they teach at ACCG, is the fact that at any given time within a board meeting, board members, as you stated, you can ask for point of order and have it read. The other thing, and as you just stated, also, Commissioner, about reading it. Now, one of the things they also teach, which is listed throughout the state of Georgia, which, you know, I think it's only 4 of us certified as commissioners. I know you going through it. But it also states that the administrator or the parliamentarian of the county is the county attorney. And at any given time, if a board member asks for something to be read, not just tonight, but is asked to go back, and will you please reread a point within the agenda, or specifically to read whatever it is that we have put in place and voted on, then immediately, according to page 549, it is the duty of said parliamentarian to be able to read that information immediately back to the board upon request. Because as you stated, it is to bring order into the meeting. The other point I want to make us aware of, and this will be the last thing that I bring up that I want us to go back and read, is on public hearings, and that's on 551 as well as 552 on comments and input, because we've been discussing that for a while. So once again, I thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing this before this board. But the Robert's Rules of Order does not give way based upon what's going to be read for anyone to continue on in a capacity that is not within guidelines of what is voted on.
Madam Clerk, go ahead and read it.
Right. The public comment prompt is as follows. The board will now hear public comments. Citizens will be given 2 minutes maximum time limit to speak before the Board of Commissioners.
Excuse me. Can you do it a little bit slower and a little bit louder?
Yes,
please.
ma'am. The board will now hear public comments. Citizens will be given 2 minutes maximum time limit to speak before the Board of Commissioners, with a total time of 20 minutes for public comments. Please note that all public comments must be limited to matters on the agenda or over matters which the governing body has jurisdiction. Speakers must maintain decorous demeanor and refrain from personal attacks upon board members, shouting, and using obscene language. Please state your name and county of residency for the record. Speak clearly into the microphone, and speakers should be courteous, respectful, and not make any disparaging remarks or use abusive language when addressing the board.
May I also add, too, that what the clerk is reading is not just her instructions, it's actually what is in this board has voted on as far as the county ordinance. So that language is taken from section 2-35-05A, and it speaks to what is allowed to be said, what topics are appropriate for public comment, and what is inappropriate from a not from a First Amendment standpoint, but from a conduct standpoint. So citizens have the right to say what to give their opinion, but not to cross the line into personal attacks, into, as it's said here, shouting, obscene language, personal attacks upon members of the governing body, and those are deemed ruled out of order, and the presiding officer has the authority to interrupt, take the floor away from individuals who violate that subsection.
Oh, wait.
Commissioner Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. And when this was derived, this piece that was voted on by the board, what was utilized to be able to come up with what we voted on here in Clayton County? I can tell you it's definitely similar to what we look at on the state level while I serve as vice chair as well. But specifically, where did you get the information to be able to find the best practices of what would work best for our county that we voted on?
I have to go back and look, but we looked at a number of other counties to find out what they had as far as their public comments. And I want to say, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I want to say the school board may have been one of those.
Mr. Chairman, we had to develop that during the loss, when we lost accreditation because of that reason, because of the meetings being out of order and things of that nature. So in working with Dr. Elgard, when I was board chair, we came up with that part of public comment to make sure that the meetings flowed together and that the meetings were not disrupted.
And it may have not been just the school board. There were other jurisdictions that have similar language as well.
And I also provided you the information from ACCG that we all follow within the state of Georgia as well as individual governing bodies.
I don't doubt that. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
I know everybody made you nervous tonight, from the preacher to the attorney.
Yeah, but I was particularly interested in the comments pertain to what's on the agenda.
Oh, great point,
Yes,
Commissioner.
that is
great point, Commissioner.
To govern.
Right. It is. That is in section 2-35-05A1. That all public comments must be limited to matters on the agenda or over matters which the governing body has jurisdiction.
So, for example, if trash pickup is not on the agenda, it's within our purview, so therefore somebody can speak on it.
That's correct. Okay. But on the other hand, it's not appropriate for them to talk to you about issues relating to a municipality.
Exactly. That's not, yeah. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for your presentation, and please, if you would, make sure that your presentation is available to us. Thank you, sir. That concludes public comment. I'm not public comment. Y'all got me on public comment, well, I'm telling you.
Can you go back to that chart that talked about he got to understand what motions to make? Will your glasses help him?
Well, I won't even say that. We stand adjourned.